So let me just move on. More summary. Not it looks like more summary so that that is not good. But the sum is coming back. That is not fine. So let's just take it again. Let's see if the sound is back. I hope to see with my co-presenters in here, Alison and Henny, who's busy right now. We got sound back. Sorry, this is this, but a little bit of technical issues here with the start. That's that makes you feel good when you have to do a webinar. So sorry about that technical issues. The rest is just gonna be good flying colors on that. So let me switch off my camera. I'm blushing right now because this was not the start that you want when you do a webinar. So let's get started with this. Alison and Henny right now being busy doing things in here as well. So let me just roll the presentation and we'll move on with the content. So today it is about finance. In 3 weeks' time, it's about supply chain management. Let's just see what I have chosen to do today. So the features, the most important features for me, financial tax. Obviously, I already did a blog post about this, and I had a little bit of a teaser about if they're going to replace dimensions. Of course they're not, but let's have a look anyway. Currency revaluation posting profile, you could argue if this is in a release wave, but I just found it so important that I wanted to include it in this, along with some of the other enhancements that happened with the last release wave, and which is not really fully usable until now. AP fully automated, well, kind of really, it's never going to happen. Completely touchless or whatever the buzzword is with the applications. But let's see what Microsoft offering is. And the last of the big four topics I'm going to do today is about ledger settlement automation. Part 2, as part 1 was already in the release wave 2022, the second of the release waves in there. But now there's more coming, and actually there's more and more coming with this. Then for the rest of the topics, it's just going to be an overview of this financial analytical reporting. Sounds really good. So does the techie thing, which we're going to do on a webinar later on, perhaps in April or May, with the more technical side of things. Just going to have a little bit of the Dataverse thing with F&O, more and more ODOP and well, all the other things that Microsoft really likes to talk about. Performance improvements, small but really important things. And for some of these, you have to look very carefully to find them. If you are like me, scrutinizing the feature management and reading things, still, it might be easy to miss if you don't look in the right places. So I just want to get a heads up on those. And then just coming back to wrap up of some of the things I've mentioned today, which was really in the 2022 release wave 2. I want to revisit some of these ones in here. And then hopefully we'll have some questions at the end of this session, and I'll try to really today behave and have like 10 minutes for the question answers at the end. While we go, please drop your questions in the chat, and my colleagues Alison and Henny, they'll try their best to sort them so we could get to the question and answer session in about 45 minutes or so. Once again, thank you very much for being here. Now, let's go on with the topics in here and see what we can do. The first thing I would like to remind you about is that when you read about the updates to Microsoft Dynamics 365, there's all sorts of places you have to look. And now there's even more than usual because it seems like Microsoft is changing a bit to a release planner kind of tool where you can still, on Microsoft Docs/Learn, you could see the good old style release wave information, what's new, what's coming, and so on. Whereas the release planner is seems like the new tool for all the consolidated things that we do across Dynamics 365 F&O, and also with the Power Platform, with the Power Apps and other things too. So I just want to remind you that you have to look in more than one place. Some things I'm going to mention today is in finance, is especially the things about core financials. There are things in Globalization Studio about tax and other local things, a lot of things for Latin American countries and some other countries as well. Those I'm going to skip today because, of course, they're interesting if you're working with these countries. But there are so many kind of global things I'd like to mention. So the Globalization Studio and other similar things I'm not going to do today. From a cross-app perspective, I'm just going to have a look at one thing, supply chain. I'm going to mention a couple of things which I find extremely important from a financial point of view. Big things happening really in supply chain management when it comes to a financial perspective, something we should know about when we're working with finance for sure. And then just a teaser for that, there is in supply chain management something which to me is purely financial interest. Right, platform updates. The looks are changing on the website, and that I'd like to point out. Not in details, just stay alert for that. So, financial tags, are they really replacing dimensions? I had a discussion, at least with myself, in a blog I did a couple of weeks ago, also on LinkedIn. And of course, we don't replace dimensions, not completely, at least. But it's such an important thing to me, and it is going to be, I think, on all projects with Dynamics 365 Finance Operations. So this is kind of my favorite topic of today. The business value of financial tags is you still could track on accounting entries, posters, and general ledgers. So what's the big deal, Finn? We could do that with dimensions. Yeah, but you know, headaches with financial dimensions. It is so easy to get carried away with financial dimensions. And then we, being consultants or our end users, they have to live with that kind of forever after because it's hard to get rid of. So as always, we need to get the financial dimensions right up front. And now perhaps we have a tool which is supposed to be an eye-opener on how we use financial dimensions, and perhaps a tool that in some ways could replace what we're using dimensions for. Let me just detail that. I've got a few things about the financial tags. So what you could use it for is that you could track user-defined fields in here on this. Just got a message on my screen. My connection is a bit unstable. So let's just see if I have more technical issues with that. I'll keep on talking for now, at least. So this is the key thing. I just brought up the bullet in here. Eliminates the need to create financial dimension that has values that are not reusable. The reusable thing is one of the values that you get from financial dimension values. You know, it takes a little bit to connect the financial dimensions to either entity backed, being global or local, or to create custom financial dimensions. You need to add the values in there in a systematic way. Now, if you're going to use financial dimension values like on the fly for information you get from supply chain or things you get from your procurement, you add a tremendous number of financial dimension values, and that is not a good thing. So if we have information we'd like to pass on, but it changes all the time, for being able to trace on transactions in a general ledger, financial tags could be here. So we would not have at least as much slow year-end close, maintenance of financial dimensions and other things too, if we use that. So you can use it for reporting purposes. And now we are going to be able to use it for ledger settlement, automatic ledger settlement, a topic coming back to later on. An example, you could do a payment reference, which is normally at least unique, so it could be easier to match the transactions like for ledger settlement. That's basically what we do in here. And then using the financial tags for the automation of the ledger settlement. Ledger settlement is something that we've always been doing, and then late in 2022, we had the option of doing ledger settlement automatically. And now with the tags, which could then help us to identify what the various transactions are and match them, which the settlement is all about, then we could further automate the things in here. So coming back to automatic ledger settlement later on with the tool for financial tax, that could help it too. I'm going to a little bit details about what the financial tax are, how you set them up, what you of course need to be careful about, because no tool without possibility of making mistakes. With financial dimensions, there's a lot of mistakes to be done. It's a very useful tool, but also it adds overhead. So if financial tax can help us reduce the number of financial dimensions, add flexibility, make it possible to speed up the processes when you work with it and add values on the fly. On the fly, that sounds a little bit scary. It gets even worse. You can edit after posting. Is that good or bad? Well, depends on what you use it for, of course. Now, the feature details, more about that. It is right now been mentioned in various places, 15 to 20. The latest figures I've seen is we have 20 user-defined text field on accounting entries. Basically, when you open these screens, you'll be able to see that when you are in a general ledger journal, when you have a look at the voucher transactions, similar to what we have with our segmented entry, where we've got the main accounts and the financial dimensions, which we also call the ledger accounts. We've got a similar, could be a very long entry field where we have the financial tax being predefined in the journal and then being overridden in the lines themselves. And then even after posting the transactions, you can modify those, as I'll show you. Now, financial tax were kind of available in last year. Now we've got the possibility slowly coming in to use it on transactions outside general ledger. Not quite here yet, but I've seen the first examples like on free text invoices, and hopefully it's still coming to procurement and other places too. We'll see things about a default engine service, because what about the values that you actually use? How do you get the values in there if we don't use financial dimensions where you've got the structured way of doing entity backed, or even when you do custom, we still have to define the values and restrictions and so on. What about the values we got in here? Now, the values we could use right now as it is by creating those and then basically using just as we'd like to, or don't even use it. Pre-created ones. So we need some kind of extra things to be able to identify things that we do in procurement, to track the payments and other things too. That is coming around later on. The default engine is for a lot of things, not just for financial tax, but financial tax is where it's going to be used first. So hopefully we could get rid of having things about financial dimensions being used for document numbers, payment references, and other values are not reusable. That is not really the purpose of financial dimensions, but in a lot of places, it's the only thing that we could use so far. The financial dimensions, right? It is once in a while when we do training around projects, it sounds like I'm not so keen on financial dimensions. I am, but I really want to reduce the number of financial dimensions in use on the projects. It gets such a big overhead. So when we got another tool in here, which reduces the overhead, which reduces all the things about setting up account structures and advanced rules or whatever we're going to do, I'm a fan of it. So I'm a fan of financial tax. Maybe you can hear that. We still store the information on the accounting entries right now with the release coming out in general availability in March. I think it is 10.032. We've got these going on general journal or global general journal as well. So moving on to see a bit about how these can be created, if you can override the predefined things and so on. I just want to mention again that in coming releases, apart from doing things in general ledger, in general journal and the global general journal, which is pretty much the same thing, we'll also be able to do it. I mentioned free text invoices, and will be on other documents in other processes too. At the moment, please note that tag values are not stored in any subledger tables, being on vendor transactions, as we'll see. But later on, got a topic about AP automation, and this could actually be an area, I think, where the financial tax could be useful later on. right now, general ledger, only general journal and global general journal. That's where you could use it. The comparison, small one, I got a lot more in my blog post about that. Decide whether you're going to track the information as a financial dimension or financial tag. Both options are possible. Financial tags are an alternative if you don't really reuse the things in here. If it's for payment references, purchase order numbers, sales order numbers, you want to be able to create those glorious financial reports, but you're not going to reuse it again. Would you always want to set up a financial dimension for that? In my blog post, I discussed about cost accounting, which is also, to me, a good alternative to all the financial dimensions that we create. But our financial tags are low-hanging fruit, not without danger zone, mind you. Coming back to that soon. So from Microsoft's perspective, from my perspective too, really, I think that you should not use financial dimensions if it's just for kind of reporting, finding things in there. Now, got a good excuse for another round of financial dimension bashing, so to speak, that if it's not really, really important for all kinds of workflows or other control mechanisms, allocations, and so on, maybe you could use financial tags for that. It would really mean a lot of things in there. Doesn't affect the performance, and that very easy to set up. So I hope you consider financial tags. If nothing else, consider using them, and then perhaps you're not going to do that. I am certainly going to push it a lot. The last thing in here, you can edit the value after posting. Is that good or bad? Well, I guess it depends on what you're going to use it for, but the idea is that you can edit it, and unfortunately, it's being tracked. There is a log of what it would be. You remember, you already got the possibility from last year to edit descriptions on kind of the internal accounting information. Now you could also edit the financial tags and trace that. That's a new feature that's coming around. Coming to that soon. There's no validation. There's no validation during the transaction entry, during the posting, or when you edit after the posting. That's a completely different thing from financial dimension values. And of course, you cannot edit financial dimension values after posting. There's a lot of restrictions. Normally, we don't allow it to be blank and all that jazz. Now with financial tags, we have to think differently. If we use this correctly, the possibility of editing after posting, of course, with a log, I think is great for those, payment references and sales order numbers or whatever it could be. In this bullet, I mentioned a thing that I'm coming back to a little bit later on, the list or the custom list. When you define the financial tags, you basically give it a name, and then you tell out of three options how you're going to supply the values. If it's just a kind of a free text field, you can key in whatever you'd like to. Or if you want to create a list, which is basically a link, as I'll show you, and a custom list, which is also a list, but where you add the things, just like you do on custom financial dimensions, basically. Even if you have set the tag up to use a list or a custom list, it's not validated. It's not validated during transaction entry, it's validated at posting, and it's not validated when you edit. So you might have posted using a value from a list, but after editing, you could change to another value, not being on the list. There's a lot of things in here when you are used to work with financial dimensions, could make you kind of sure, but consider the value of this in here, right? That it's possible now to add a lot of basically free text fields, which could help us during the reporting. And without all the overhead of financial dimensions, with the configuration, with the maintenance, switching into maintenance mode, and you can sort of never deactivate once you have transactions on it and all that on financial dimensions, and all the overhead we get with our end of month, end of year processes as well. Now, there is this defaulting service that I mentioned to you, which is coming up in during 2023, at least it's mentioned like that. The first part is going to be for financial tags. So it's possible to set up some key attributes for financial dimensions, transaction descriptions, financial tags. Financial tag being the first of the ones which is coming up. And I think that's good, because right now there's so many things to consider about financial tags. it would be good to get some help how to put it to use. Now, financial tax is great. Have to move on. Got other things too. So let me just speed a little bit through next of things in here with the financial tax. The fine print, where you need to think about. You need to think about in feature management to turn on the feature, and then you need to consider the new feature which allows edit on internal data on general ledger vouchers. Well, actually, it's not new. It was here last year. I can't remember, November, December, whatever it was. But at that time, it was only about the descriptions on the vouchers. So the description field was enabled with that, but that was before financial tax. So now, if you have A, allow edits to internal data on general ledger vouchers, and B, you got financial tax, then without financial tax, you could edit the description, and with financial tax on, you could also edit the tag values in here. And please do remember, there's no validation whatsoever if you change from a list value to another list value. It's perfectly okay. It's really, really free text fields, these ones in here. So in general ledger parameters, a few things to set up. The segment delimiter, pretty much like the financial dimensions. You would set up the financial tax and job account financial tax, and then you would define a name, what the value type would be. If it's a free text field, no lookup, no drop down. If it is a list, you're linking to values, you use values from bank accounts or whatever you're going to do. Or if it's a custom list, pretty much like financial dimensions type custom, you add the values yourself. And then, of course, if it's active or not. The use value from is an additional field which is only available if you have selected the value type to be of the type of list. Edit the voucher, I mentioned you that. You need to switch a feature on, you edit the voucher, and you could edit not just tags, right? This is an overview of all of it. Description, we could do that before the tags, and then you could edit the financial tags in here. And there's also the possibility of a bulk update. Right now, I do hope that changes, but right now, it's a possibility to bulk update just one field at a time. Now, speeding up a little bit, so now all the bullets at once. In here, a little bit of tax. I mentioned to you in the journal setup, once you have selected journal name, you got the journal in there, and before you add some lines on the journal setup, we have an extra tab now called the financial tax, where you could predefine some values, like with financial dimensions, basically. On the journal line, we have an extra segmented field after the account. We got the financial tax in there, and then on the vouchers, obviously, too. That was it for financial tax, and I just have to restrict myself from that. But I'm kind of excited about that, I think. And need to be very careful. Also already with some discussions with colleagues, how could use that, how could convince, how do we dare changing from all the usual financial dimensions to financial tax. I hope we're there, for sure. Now, moving on to something completely different, not all new, but very important, I think. This is a feature I've been asking about for many, many years. One reason is some of our competitors could do this for ages. So now, finally, it's possible to direct foreign currency revaluation transactions to different accounts than the ones we have in Ledger, and then we got in the currency revaluation accounts. But just a quick recap of the foreign currency revaluation, where we can do it: accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash and bank management, and the general ledgers. Some with a preview, so you can post it if you're okay with it. Some with the simulation, unfortunately, you have to run again once you want to post. Now we'll get these transactions, being the ones we do from a revaluation, we'll do the unrealized transactions, or when we do the settlement, we get the realized transactions. We direct to for each of those 4 transaction types: unrealized gain or loss, or realized gain or loss. We will post the transactions into, well, before the new foreign currency revaluation posting profile, we had only 2 options. We could define in the screen the currency revaluation accounts, defining that per currency and transaction type per legal entity. And then, of course, also for the legal entity, since it's in the ledger screen, then we could define the accounts per transaction type. So that would be the fallback if we didn't define any overrides in the currency revaluation accounts. Now, the new thing which is coming in here is then that we got a posting profile from this March version in here. We got the currency revaluation profile, posting profile, and it is in one screen, mind you. It is set up in general ledger currencies, the currency revaluation posting profile for all 4 modules where we can run the foreign currency revaluation or have revaluation transactions. So it is for general ledger, it is for accounts payable, it is for accounts receivable, and it is for, well, bank, cash and bank management as well. So in this, you can set up similar to posting profile, app the name in here. So you can use the familiar table, single, group, or all. And this is yet another time to consider the main account category, which I see in a lot of places not really being filled in. I'm a strong advocate of the main account category. Now we got it on a trial balance as a column as well. Really nice. We use it for Power BI. We use it for a lot of things. And now we could use it as a group categorization for main accounts in this currency revaluation posting profile. Great little thing that has been added or is added right now. And that is definitely worth a look. Finally, we can direct the foreign currency revaluation transactions to accounts based on, and then even more than kind of I asked for, if it was for accounts payable, accounts receivable, but also depending on single, well, table, group, or all. And then you would need, so just like we do with inventory transaction, define is the account the major thing, or is a currency the major thing? There might be some clashes in this setup. This is good. Now, another thing which I really like is automation in accounts payable. Touchless kind of thing in here. You get the invoices and it's automatically approved, it's automatically coded, and these days you could even automatically pay invoices. I don't know anybody who does that, but it is possible. So is this really going to be fully automated? I think Microsoft did a good start. Just before we get started, I have to do a disclaimer because AXcademy is a training partner for Xflow. And Xflow, they do these things, so they're kind of competitors with Microsoft. But I'll try to give you my unbiased point of view when we're talking about Microsoft's solution. And I really think there's a lot of good things coming in there. But it's new. That's kind of obvious when you see it. A lot of good thoughts, I think, in here. So what you could do is some of these things we could do already. The value of doing the vendor invoice processing is that you'll save some time. You don't have to look into it, things about invoice matching and using workflows and so on. That is very useful, especially for purchase. So we had a lot of good functionality before in Dynamics 365, and now more things are being added with artificial intelligence and so on. And that's where I think that the Microsoft stack really proves there's a lot of things, good things going and coming, and really excited to see what's going to be added in here, because I think that there's a lot of good functionality that is getting somewhere on this. Of course, it takes years to build this, but the Microsoft has had a good start, I think. But it is a service which seems to be focused on not just Dynamics 365 Finance, but on other systems as well. There's a lot of things that are happening on the web. Now, in this, let me just move on to the tools in here. Intelligent automation, recognizing of vendor invoices. Now the tools in the Azure Form Recognizer and the artificial intelligence power platform, all things which are Microsoft stack. There's so many tools in there. Just need to get these adjusted, and I'm sure it's going to be great, this one here. What about all the other solutions in here, which has been around for years and so on? Of course, some of these ones being kind of 100% inside Dynamics 365, some of them being add-on. I think Microsoft, it looks like Microsoft is aiming for being sort of having this solution, not just for Dynamics 365 Finance, but also for SAP or Oracle or whatever other systems would be in here. But it's good to see things are happening. There's a lot of functionality in AP, which is sort of being hanging in there somewhere. And why did we have new things in here for a long time? So now things that are being added in here is also for non-PO invoices, where we could use some help in standard Dynamics 365 for sure. The other big topic I have of today, I'm going to spend I think 10 minutes in here, and then the rest of the topics are going to be just some headlines in that. That's a settlement automation. I don't like manual work. I don't, and especially ledger settlement. Just like with inventory counting and other things we have to do, it's not good fun. So the more we could do, making it automatically run, automatically settle, and then just complain, that's nice. If you think this is pretty much like bank reconciliation, it's a bit far off. Bank reconciliation being linking incoming thing in Dynamics 365, well, actually AX release 2 to be precise, the automatic bank reconciliation where you import statements should match the bank transactions. That's really nice when it's been added on that. And that's why we got the ledger settlement right now. It hasn't been good fun for quite a long time, being a manual thing. And now added that we can match the debit and credit transaction in general ledger automatically. Now, this was added a little bit of time ago, but was not perfect. It is still not perfect, but it's getting better. The reason for doing settlement transactions, a lot of people wouldn't do it, but one of the reasons for doing that is when you get to year end and when you get to reports and other things too, you could decide that settle transaction could be excluded. That speeds up the things. But when we get to year end and other things too, it could also be kind of a danger zone. And that's why ledger settlement automation, you have to think a little bit about in here what it is. So let's just see what has been added until we get to 10.0.31. Advanced ledger settlement was removed and switched on. So basically, you could do this settlement if you wanted to. Please note, when you read about the updates that happens with the release waves, make sure that you have a look at the feature state changes. The feature state changes are the ones that from feature management, you could do it if you wanted to, and then it's changed to it's automatic on, and then later on it might even be mandatory. There's a lot of these ones with the upcoming release in March 10.0.32. Make sure you read that. This is just one example of now it's always enabled on that. Some of these ones you can sort of disable, and some of these ones you could, depending on if it's optional or not. Now, the awareness between ledger settlement and year-end close is a thing that you do sort of a cross-year settlement thing. You need to be careful about that. I don't have the time to get into all these details, but since now automatic settlement could happen, there could be things happening automatically that you don't really want to do. So the functionality is changed around settlement itself and also about the year-end close. Some time ago, I did a sort of a periodic, what kind of periodic word, year-end close kind of webinar as well. We didn't talk about this one in here. That was too much. But this you need to be aware of, that if you are going to do automatic settlement, be aware of the changes happening with the year-end process as well. And that's the reason why there's slowly more and more happening. You can see version 10.0.21, 25, 29, more and more things being added because, there was a couple of things that we should be careful about, or users complaining about, whatever. And I'm sure with the automatic ledger settlement process, which is now being available as we speak, kind of, with 10.0.31, there's even more. And right now, there's one thing, that is a little bit nagging in there. First of all, you can only switch this on, enable this in the feature management if you have already enabled the awareness thing in here as well. That's because with the automatic thing, you could create something that could get you into trouble with the year-end clause. So read about that. When we do the ledger settlement automation, you set up kind of scheduling. What is it then? How do you do the matching? And what is it based on? And all that similar to when we do it on the automatic bank reconciliation. Very similar thing. If you're used to that, you know what this is about. So when you do the settlement process, just like the manual thing, you'll find the matching debits and credits. Mind you, with the current one, you can only match if the debit and the credit transaction has an accounting currency amount being equal. Now, how bad is that? Well, depends really. A lot of times we'd have like 75 and 25 matches one and other things too. So obviously this is not completely perfect, to say the least. Fortunately, things are being changed right now. That's in the release wave, and that's the reason why I want to point this out. And right now, be careful, you can only match if the amounts are equal in accounting currency. Debit one, credit one, that could be a match depending on the rules that you set up. Now, and please note, this is the note as it is right now. The partial matching is not supported. But quickly on to the next thing in here. So we say, hey, from release wave one, we have the following things being added, not quite with the partial settlement. However, we could use financial tags. Back to financial tags, right? Remember that? We could use that to automate period ledger settlement, like for payment references and other things too. That's really nice. With the partial settlement that's being added right now, it's slated for September 23. I hope they're going to speed up a little bit with that. So partial matching is now supported. Now is well, in September, right? Maybe we've seen each other again in a webinar before that, but at least it's on the table. It's on the release wave, and that's one of the things I would like would be speeded up. Actually, as I'll show you a little bit later on, some things being added in the future is backported very quickly on that, so it could happen. And this is one I would really like to see that they speed it up. This for sure. Let me speed up as well. So please remember, this is future. So yes, it is too bad, but that's how it is, and there's hope. That's what we have right now. Automated settlement with financial tax, yes. Settlement, automatic ledger settlement was in release wave 2, and that is, of course, then now when we get to this in April, hopefully, then we could use financial tax to automate the ledger settlement, like period end or whatever we like to do. I really think that is great. Okay. The fine print, well, how you actually configure this. We use the process automation framework, nice and friendly kind of workflow kind of thing in here, just smarter. So you want this to run and batch and other things too. For the settlements, you will need to go either to system administration or you go to general ledger to set up the process automation. And not too many screens today, right? It's not hands-on. I'm still short of time. This is just a screenshot where do this. Procedure is create a new process automation option for the ledger settlement, and then a wizard will guide you through, okay, what do you want to do, what do you want to include, which accounts, and other things too. This is a great feature, and it was a long time overdue, I think, just like just like some of the other ones. Yeah. But a lot of good things are being added. I really think so. And also small enhancements as we go. With date tolerances on the alternative settlement in here, payment references on settlement accounts, and you can see across cross-year settlements. That could be something that you don't want to do. We do an unsettling thing in here. That was the things about you have to switch this feature on in order to switch the other one about automatic ledger settlement, so you're aware of things that happen across fiscal years on that. So a little bit of reading that you have to do about the feature, and then also when you do the cross-year settlements, review those before you actually say that was kind of it. And that was a feature that was backported in here. It doesn't happen too often these days. I think Microsoft says, hey, this we have to sort of put back to users so they can use it right now instead of waiting until 10:30, 1, 2, 3, or whatever. This was fun. Then a bit far up, sort of the financial analytical report. I'm really looking forward to this because there's a lot of times we have been mentioning to our users that that you could do reports easily. You could use Microsoft Office or 365 or whatever the name is these days. And I think this tool is going to do it. It's been a long time coming. But what this is basically about is that we have the complete data model instead of users. They would have to, okay, how have we got customers connected to to customer transactions, how is that related to sales orders and sales order lines and all that. The claim here is that we'll have a complete data model. We'll have a shared kind of thing, kind of like SharePoint thingish, but reporting hub instead. And then security is where it should be all the time. So yes, you can do reports in general, but users can only see the data they're allowed to as they should. So overall, just a quick dash through that complete data model. That means that you can see the relationships immediately. You don't have to think, don't make me think. And that's the thing about the relationships in here that basically you select, I would like to see transactions too. I don't have to think about how the relationship goes between my main accounts and the financial dimensions and the subledger and so on. You just, well, hopefully drag and drop. So no need for developer interventions. We'll see that. But anyway, that's the claim as it is right now. Single source for reporting, get in there, find the data you'd like to, not drill down, not things about in around joins or whatever you do, just put it in the report. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Friendly to the accountant. That's what we like in finance. Excel, Power BI, the tools that you use, being able to find the data that you want to present. That is big news, but it is a bit far. It's not going to be here right now. So maybe next time, maybe in a couple of months, I'd like to do about that, because this is really, I think, big. Being able to do the reports that you like to do, have a place where you can share the reports, you can group them, and other things too. Sounds really promising, and of course, security, yes. Now, the Dataverse thing, I mentioned to you that I'm not a developer guy, but working with developer guys and some of our instructors are developer guys themselves, got two platforms right now. I know convergence and things, but Dataverse is the guy in the middle, and it's not always easy to understand how we send requests back and forth to get the data and so on. And this is where it sounds like it's going to be simpler. So next time we have a webinar with one of our development guys, Dennis or Rafael, who's going to be, we're going to talk about this and a lot more on the technical side, but not this time around. Just a little bit heads up on performance improvements, not mine, but feel free to comment, of course. More like on Dynamics 365, archive and purge data. Is that not big news, Finn? It is for sure, but there's so many things which are big things. Archive and purge data. We've been waiting for that. Not get rid of the data, but archive them in a safe place using Dataverse or whatever, and then we could find the data for Power BIs and reporting forever after. Select which legal entities and which fiscal years you want to do it for and all. Sounds great. It's not bad, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to get through that. And then smaller details, performance improvements. Of course, archive and purge data will dramatically increase the performance. If you have historical data, still be able to find it, but you're down to 5 years or whatever it takes. Best task for customer aging snapshot. I'm a big fan of the workspace with the customer credit and collection. Customer aging snapshot, if you got 1 million customers, could take a while. And now it's possible to split the batch job by optimizing the year-end close or whatever it would be for those. Sorry, mixing those two up to optimize the calculation of the customer aging snapshot. Optimize the year-end close. Financial tax could be part of that, and there are other ways of batching things in here as well. And then we've got the financial dimension service, which could help you populate some data in as well. Now, mind you, financial tax could take some of the requirement out of the financial dimension service, actually. And they've got the foreign currency revaluation performance improvement. That is a tricky one. That's a tricky one. It's tricky to find it. Archive and purge data, I mentioned to you what that was. Allows you to archive the data using Dataverse. Setting up scheduling is legal entities for that. Best task for splitting the customer aging snapshot into smaller bits and pieces. Optimize the year-end closing by a microservice. One of those things that happens outside Dynamics 365, depending on if you're in the cloud, on premise, or whatever. and then speeding up things. Once again, financial tax, I mentioned that. Okay. So the data management framework to import a lot of lines with the financial dimensions. Oh, once again, financial dimensions, financial tax. If it's a one-off value that you import, maybe got to use the tax anyway. And then the tricky one, the foreign currency revaluation performance improvements. If you got a lot of foreign currency open transactions in accounts payable and in accounts receivable, it could take a while, as some of you know. So now you got the possibility of improving the performance, but be careful. The feature management is under cash and bank management. This is one of those you find almost by mistake if you don't read all the things. I don't know anybody who does that. So this is about things that happens in accounts payable and accounts receivable, and you find the parameter, the feature in cash and bank management. I don't get that, but it's in there, and that's fine. It's useful, but as always, look carefully. Finally, I just want to remind you some of the things we saw today was about the prior release wave on that. So ledger settlement year-end close, some of the things is already available. Some improvements are going to be available too. The awareness was in there. The financial tax in itself was made available with the prior release wave. And then there's just so many more things, as I've shown you today, which is becoming available with the new one. Okay, platform updates. Nope, I just want to tell you, somebody moved my cheese around that the interface, the user interface has changed. Andre has done a good video on YouTube. Have a look at that, where he shows you some of the things that the close button, the drop downs, instead of having sharp edges in our boxes, we now got round corners and some other things, some more confusing than others. But be aware that the web client, before you sit in front of your colleagues and do a demonstration, be aware that some of the things they have changed. Otherwise, it's kind of egg on FaceTime. So just have a look, please. 10.0.32. Things have changed now. And now the final thing, and then it's on to a bit more. Just the final things on the new things, financials and supply chain. Some features in release wave 2023 for supply chain management. Well, yes, well, no, it's finance. I think some of it. Now, this is big. This has been something we've been waiting for. We've been able to do cost calculation in several currencies and doing for standard cost and having separate parallel ledgers in here for the various accounting practices in countries around the world. That is something that I for sure going to discuss with my colleague Andreas when we have a webinar early March in here on AXcademy.com. We'll discuss the release wave for supply chain management. And this is one of them. For better and for worse, we've got to discuss financial things. Andreas is very much a supply chain guy, but I'm a finance guy and supply chain guy. I think this is great. And then something, once again, this is not in the proper place. Under supply chain management, under procurement, you'll find this important little thing, which is to me entirely financial, about a new workflow, which is to approve changed vendor bank account. I know we could do something about the vendor information when it was changed, the credit limits, the bank accounts, and other things too. This is a separate one. It's a new one because it's really, really important that this is handled correctly. And look under procurement, which is under supply chain management, to find this one. But please don't miss it. Small thing, but really, really important. For those and other things, please come back and join me. And then hopefully the sound will be slightly better from the start too, when we have the new webinar on the 8th of March, where Andreas, excellent supply chain guy, very nice person, will join me for a webinar about our top 5. We have to find a number, right? We just have 5 in the presentation. You can sign up for the webinar already now. There's probably going to be a few more new features, just like on this one in here. And with that, I will just have a quick look through some of the questions while my colleague Alison is going to just tell you a little bit about the next couple of slides. Are you with me, Alison, to talk a little bit about what is in here?
Hi, Finn. Hi, everyone. Hi, thanks, Finn. My name's Alison. I work with Finn at AXcademy. And just whilst Finn looks over your questions, which he'll be back to answer in just a moment, I just wanted to draw your attention to our flexible on-demand courses, which allow you to learn in your own time, at your own pace, from wherever you are. So we have a range of on-demand courses designed for all abilities. They're entirely online. You study independently with all of your learning resources and material easily accessible. And our virtual learning environment will break each course module down into short interactive lessons, enabling you to learn even when you've just got a few minutes to spare. So they're really flexible. I'm going to share a link with you now in the chat so you can have a look at what's available. You'll have 24/7 access to your training. And when you sign up, you'll have access to the content for up to 90 days and have tips on how to access a free virtual online training environment. And where available, we also give you access to the Microsoft official practice tests for 180 days. You have access. So just wanted to draw your attention to the on-demand training. I also just want to talk to you a little bit about our training environments VM. So whilst you can have access to a free virtual online training environment, it's very limited. These training environments are standalone. You can just buy them on their own by access. You don't need to purchase the training course, and you'll get 180 days access with unlimited launches. It's full access to your own standalone Microsoft prepared training environment. It comes complete with D365 FO, Contoso demo, so you can practice in your own time. And there's also 24/7 customer support directly available from our service providers. So I will also share that link with you now in the chat. Hopefully, Finn has had a chance to have a look over your questions, so he'll come back to answer those now. But thank you very much for your time and for joining us today. Thanks, Finn.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Yes, I did have some time to look at the questions. A lot of good questions in here. Thank you very much for that. Some of them I can't answer right now, but I will just have a look. And let me start from the top where I can see something that Alison and Henny has marked as questions in here. So let's see, some of you in there. I got a question from Andrew. Do tags have to be added at the point of posting, or can they be added afterwards? And that's an affirmative. They can be added afterwards, provided that you switch on the feature about being allowed to edit internal accounting, I think it's called. I think I showed you, and that was probably after the question, I showed you that you switch on this feature, you can edit both the financial tags and also the description on already posted the transaction. So they don't have to be added at the point of posting. And even if they were, you can modify them afterwards. So basically, if it's a blank one, you didn't enter anything, then after posting, you can add those. And then once again, remember, because I think that's an important point, not validated whatsoever. So even if you selected, as it is right now, even if you selected a value from a drop-down list with the use values from, or you created the custom list yourself, you can just key in any value, basically. That is as it is right now. There is no validation. With the defaulting service, I'm still excited to see what is coming up. Can we receive the slide deck afterwards? That is entirely in the hands of Alison and Henny, so I'll just keep out of that trouble. A question which is this going to take the place of other ISVs like Kofax or whatever? I don't know. I think it's going to be a supplement like that, because there is already now, for the ones I know best, Xflow, they use different services. Kofax is the preferred one, but they use other services too. For the initial things before getting into, as for Xflow, getting into being a Dynamics 365 module, then you basically, you could feed in from any solution vendor on that. So Kofax is going to be around, I'm sure. Microsoft is going to be around, I'm pretty sure, on that. So I don't think it's going to take the place of it. In a lot of places, even the bank module has increased a lot in functionality in Dynamics 365, but still there is some excellent ISVs doing bank modules, a couple at least of those which are really excellent. And so even though Microsoft is in the marketplace, there's still room for somebody doing even better than Microsoft in these ones. So I think the same thing for the scanning OCR service on that. That was on AP automation from Gonzalo. Kelvin, do you think you could match using financial tax in automated ledger settlement? And that was a yes. I mentioned that briefly, which you can see then in recorded webinar as well. Luigi, is settlement done by sorting by reg ID if two pairs of transactions have the same attributes specified in criteria? Whether it's reg ID or voucher, I'm not sure about that. I would have to come back to that. Reg ID voucher in accounts receivable. We got this similar thing about prioritization when we do automatic settlement. And that is sort of the last resort in there is the voucher. And that's why I'm just thinking aloud right now that is the voucher. So the date's the same, the amount is the same, the currency is the same, and so on. So the last resort in there, at least, is the voucher. And I think, I can't remember, to be honest, I think that's the same thing in here. Then I have a question. Elizabeth, will this ledger settlement help eliminate the reverse and reposting of transactions with the purchase order receipt being reversed and rebooked when the purchase order invoice is posted? That's a good question too. I don't know. I have to think about that. Well, it's a good one. Annapurna, bank settlement import methods for general ledger. I'm not sure what the question is. If there are some more, or what it is on that. And then a question which could have a smiley but doesn't. Patrick, will you ever build project operations training for integrated mode with project management accounting or PMA? It is in there. Well, hopefully. We really want to. We've been waiting for a long time with project operations because we want Microsoft to find their own feet when we're talking about project operations. We are project management accounting guys. For sure, I just like that module, being certified that when it was last possible, 2009, 2012. So I really like the module, and so does Andreas. Hopefully, that's what I can answer right now. We tend to build, and right now, well, tomorrow we're going to talk more about AXcademy, about doing training for the other side of things, and we're already doing training for the Power Platform. So we want to do it all, but to be honest, right now, project operation is not going to be today. That's for sure. But once it does to settle with the things in there, we have to, because project management accounting is the old name. It's such a big thing. That's the reason why we still got a lot of training going on project management accounting. We've got training materials, on-demand courses for project management accounting. Project operations, not yet. Sorry. Question from Terry. All the VMs listed appear to be tied to an MBA training course. What VM should I use if I want to compete the labs in the financial management 1 and 2? Now, sales department is not going to like that, Terry, but you can use the same for that. So basically, not completely true when we get to the development ones, but basically you can have the MB310 for finance, which is completely set up with the Contosa demo data, and that will work absolutely marvelous with financial management 1 and financial management 2 and MB310 and MB300. Well, before I get carried away, better stop. Development is where it's different. Power Platform is where it's different. But for the standard ones, MB300, 310, 330, and then we're talking about financial management 1 and 2. You can use the same one. And then the last question I have in here right now, and then we will finish. And the Sim is asking about the AP automation from Microsoft. What would be the scanning app to use? I think that's a Microsoft one, right? I'm working with Excel, so I haven't paid too much attention yet, but I actually think that's Microsoft themselves using the Azure Form Recognizer thing in here to do all of that. But then I just like the rest of us eager to learn more. And I will. Some of the things I'll learn now is for the supply chain management, which is coming up fairly soon. We've got a webinar going on. And by the way, for those of you still hanging around, just want you to know that Andreas just finished a new version of his book, but I'm sure he'll talk more about that when we meet next time around. Thank you very much for your patience. And I'm terribly sorry about the sound. We did check. We've got 2 checks today about things, but still things can go wrong, not unlike projects. Right. Thank you very much for your time. Hope to see you on the next webinar. That was Finn from AXcademy, along with Alison and Henny. Thank you very much for joining us.